weighing the effect of the emergency cash that bank is getting from Swiss National Bank. Google owned YouTube TV, raising its monthly price from $65 up to $73 a month, making some people question why they got rid of cable. It started 6 years ago at $35 a month, but YouTube TV recently paid a reported $2 billion for the rights to the NFL's Sunday ticket package. Jessica Ettinger, CNBC.
Do you want to know what's trending now? You can defer payments of a full NetSuite implementation for 6 months. No payments and no interest for 6 months. This is a big deal. NetSuite by Oracle has never made an offer like this in its 22 years as the leading cloud financial system. 33,000 companies have already upgraded to NetSuite, gaining visibility and control over their financials, inventory, HR, e-commerce, and more. Everything they need to reduce manual processes, boost efficiency, build forecasts, and increase productivity across every department. In fact, almost 90% of finance leaders agree that NetSuite helps them reduce manual data entry time. Whether your business generates millions or hundreds of millions of dollars, take advantage of this special financing offer of no payments or interest for 6 months at netsuite.com/advantage. That's netsuite.com/advantage. netsuite.com/advantage.
NBC News Radio, I'm Lisa Taylor. An arrest warrant is being issued for Russian President Vladimir Putin over the war in Ukraine. That's according to Reuters, which says the International Criminal Court issued the warrant today. It accuses Putin of war crimes, centering around kids being deported and others being transferred from Ukraine to Russia. Stocks are down once again after Silicon Valley Bank's parent company filed for bankruptcy. SVB Financial Group said today it filed for a court-supervised reorganization under Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection to seek buyers for its assets. Earlier this week, the company said it was planning to explore strategic alternatives for its businesses. California regulators shut down Silicon Valley Bank last Friday. As a result, all three major averages were falling by more than 1% today. Lottery players are hoping a little luck this St. Paddy's Day will be on their side as they try to win a jackpot worth more than $250 million. Tonight's Mega Millions top prize is at least $254 million.
One of the best ways to build a healthier local economy is by shopping locally. Teamster Advantage is a shop local program started by Teamster Local 1932 that has brought together hundreds of locally owned businesses to provide discounts for residents who make shopping locally their priority. Everything from restaurants like Corky's to fun times at SB Raceway and much, much more. If you're not currently a Teamster and you want access to these local business discounts, contact Jennifer at 909-889-8377, extension 224. Give her a call. That number again is 909-889-8377, extension 224.
Are you underpaid and overworked? Is a living wage and employee benefits like affordable health care more of a dream than a reality for you and your family? If so, it's time to form a union. Don't be denied the wages and benefits you deserve. Come together in a union with the power of numbers. A union is not a privilege, it's your right, and it will make a difference. Contact Teamsters Local 1932, a powerful and successful labor union in San Bernardino, by visiting teamsters1932.org/organize to start today. Labor unions built the middle class, and the middle class built America. That's the message from Teamsters Local 1932, a strong and successful labor union based in San Bernardino that represents over 14,000 hardworking people across the Inland Empire. The Teamsters are ready to help you organize for better pay, increased benefits, and improved working conditions. Reach out to Teamsters 1932 at teamsters1932.org/organize to speak with an organizer today.
Located in the heart of San Bernardino, California, the Teamsters Local 1932 Training Center is designed to train workers for high-demand, good-paying jobs in various industries throughout the Inland Empire. If you want a pathway to a high-paying job and the respect that comes with a union contract, visit 1932trainingcenter.org to enroll today. That's 1932trainingcenter.org.
Welcome, brothers sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Finding it very interesting that the conservative groups are circling the wagons, lining up against the rail safety bill that I guess we've gotten so far away from the fiery plume in East Palestine. I guess we've forgotten and how strong the calls were for the Railway Safety Act of 2023. And it's just a couple of days ago. But we evidently, for some, hath forgotten. And the good folks over at Freedom Works, because who could be against freedom? The good folks over at Freedom Works with the billionaire cash pushing this deregulatory environment, they are not pleased. Not happy at all. In fact, they believe that this is going to handcuff business, inflict new barriers, new hurdles for businesses, and not going to do anything for safety. So onerous. Again, we're going to hear lots of these words, retreads from the past, but oldies but goodies. Onerous regulations on these very, very safe railroads. And look, the railroads, for the most part, they have a reasonable safety record that we know of. And that's the part that I really like, that we know of. If you would walk down the street and ask someone, gee, how many train derailments do you think we had last year? You might get, people, I don't know, a handful. Over 1,000. A couple a day. And again, this is one of those things where you go, we're not causing, it's not an East Palestine every day. But a moment where we should be going, there's a lot of room for safety. There's a lot of room for opportunity to do things better. And as we've talked to union leaders and trainmen over these last several weeks, and over the last several months, honestly, they all told the same thing. These railroads are cutting corners at every opportunity just so they can line their pocket. The time that they get to make inspections is virtually non-existent. They pencil whip things through. The railroads don't actually own the equipment that goes down the track, so it's somebody else's problem. Push it off on them. So you have all of these different factors playing in, and the person who's supposed to be overseeing it, they've deregulated. It's basically a toothless dog. I mean, there might be a dog out there and it's barking, but there's no bite. There are no teeth in the bite. And that's what they've gotten away with because, again, I talk about this a lot, the swinging door between regulators and the industry. When you have a really incestuous relationship of, first we'll go work in the regulatory agencies for a little bit, then we'll swing over to the industry, make a boatload of money, and then swing back. Especially when you're talking about administration to administration. You go back to the Trump years where they, deregulated a bunch of stuff. And I know, before my conservative friends get their panties in a twist, the braking system would not have stopped this. But the inspection times, having some additional strength for the union to advocate for their members, this is where having, the government involvement in this is troublesome. And as I said over the summer, they weren't going to be allowed to strike, although I thought they should have been. Their concerns never seem to get addressed. They have an agreement. They don't have a contract, which means, again, the railroads know that there's nothing they can do other than shell out a little bit of money after the fact. So when I see big money groups like Freedom Works, when I see the billionaire mouthpieces like Freedom Works saying, no. Yeah, we're sorry about the little spill. We're sorry about it, but this is not conservative values. None whatsoever. Conservative values are about deregulation. Now, it's interesting watching the two kind of, polar opposite opinions on this, because J.D. Vance and his crew and the Republican Party are actually trying to push back on this by saying, no, J.D. Vance has built a strong coalition, with Josh Hawley and Marco Rubio, and they've crafted a bill. And this bill is going to target rail safety improvement, and it's not going to bog down the industry. This is the magic sauce. You won't even know the regulations are there. They're going to be so light and so, but the safety, absolutely. So this is one of these things. I got to tell you, it makes me go. The Railway Safety Act. The only reason I have any faith in it whatsoever is Sherrod Brown's a part of it. I think Sherrod Brown's a smart guy. I think he cares about working class people. I think he cares about the people of East Palestine. I think he cares about the people of name the town down the line that could be next. I think he cares about those folks. But I look at this and I see the moneyed interests, which are the Freedom Works, which are these front groups, these wonderfully euphemistic named groups, Americans for Dogs and Puppies, Americans who love mom and apple pie, who spew the most toxic garbage. And this is part of it. This idea of, we can't possibly have these onerous regulations, like requiring a minimum amount of time for inspections. And I love what the good folks at Freedom Works said about this, because here's the thing. I actually agree with them on this point. They said operators would be required to create minimum time requirements for inspections rather than focusing on quality of inspections. And I'm going, I actually agree with that. But here's the thing. I've actually seen how big these boxcars are because I spend a lot of time in rail yards. I don't know how you inspect one of those in 90 seconds. And yes, I said that right. Currently, to inspect one of these, 90 seconds. I defy you to walk around one of these things in 90 seconds, let alone the 120-point inspection that you're supposed to be doing. Now, quality of inspections for me is incredibly important. Minimum time requirements, not so much, because I know to do a minimum time requirement, a quality inspection is probably going to be more than the minimum that they've put in here. I agree with Freedom Works. I want quality inspections. I want them checking things. I want the person on the ground to have the power to say, no, this is unsafe. I want these rail operators to have the exact same power that I've had as a truck driver for 30 years. That if something's not right, it doesn't go out on the road. If something's not right, the only place that it moves is from wherever it's parked to the shop to get fixed. And I think the average American, red hat, blue hat, green hat, orange hat, no hat, I think everyone would agree that's how it should be. If something's wrong with it, why take the chance? Well, the railroad company's like, hey, we got time to keep. Time is money, and we want the money. And what's the worst thing that can happen? Well, something like East Palestine. And to be honest, that's not even a big deal to them. It's a couple $1 million when they're making billions. Now, I love what Freedom Works came out with their letter and said, this, if we do this, it could lead to potential unintended consequences. And my mind went to this place. You mean like safer rails, like safer trains, like less derailments, like maybe not another plume of smoke, not another community devastated by toxic fumes? I would hope that would be an intended consequence. But their response was, and I love this, rail companies would be forced to divert resources away from critical research and development. And I got to tell you, I don't know how much R&D Norfolk Southern and the others are doing on 120, 130-year-old technology, but okay. They say, which could have been otherwise used to advance new technologies, improve efficiency. Rather than advance this misguided bill, Congress should instead focus on the facts to best protect businesses, consumers, and taxpayers. They didn't say anything about people who live in communities like East Palestine. And the letter was signed on to by a who's who of right-wing crazy. Top to bottom, the Job Creators Network of America and the National Taxpayers Union, all of the good right-wing billionaire-funded groups who spew poison all the time. When there's an idea that comes out of one of these groups, working people, it's bad for you. It's bad for us. Now, the one thing that I did agree with that they said, again, there's some things I agree with. One of the things that I think they said that, I don't agree with the first part. Instead of regulation, we should make the communities whole. And I agree with that. We should be making these communities whole. We should be holding these railroads accountable, making every person whole. I'm sure you saw last week that the chief executive, Alan Shaw of Norfolk Southern, told the Senate that they're going to provide $21 million in assistance to East Palestine to help the residents and the affected emergency services. And I'm going, $21 million is nothing to their bottom line, which means they're never going to change. But I gotta think, a drop in the bucket when you consider all of the people who lost work, you consider all of the property that's been damaged, you consider all of the damage that's been done to the waterways, and again, we don't know what the fallout's going to be. But what I do know is the Republican Party, who was all crazy, and Pete Buttigieg, there was a lot of Buttigieg. They're now, the moneyed Republicans are now circling the wagons. They're now circling the wagons because, that ideological thing that they believed in, that they've trained their base to believe, that they've, because look, I've got conservative friends. You mentioned regulations. They just foam at the mouth like a Pavlovian dog. A regulation, and they just foam. They don't know why. They've been trained well. That's in jeopardy when you look at the fact that East Palestine, that big plume of smoke, you look at the SV Bank, the Silicon Valley Bank, you look at the bank failures, this is deregulation. This is what not having a cop on the beat gets you. This is what having no oversight is getting you. This is what having defunding regulators. And I know, can't jump to conclusions. On this, I think it's pretty simple. When you don't have the regulations in place to do the things that you need, guess what happens? Bad things. It's that simple. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Got lots to get to today. Also, your thoughts. Make sure you email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. But lots of fun, lots of entertainment. Quick break. Right back after this.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
The phone lines are open. Give Rick a call at 1-866-416-RICK. That's 1-866-416-7425.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, interestingly enough, according to the U.S. Attorney in Washington, D.C., there's going to be another 1,000 people could possibly be arrested and charged with the January 6th insurrection. Potentially another 1,000 people locked up. That should send the crazy folk who watched the video of Tucker Carlson's, that really well edited video. That should send them into a total tizzy. Because I actually had someone tell me that the police escorted the guy with the horns into the chamber. He didn't break in. They escorted him. And I go, you do realize you're watching the end of it, and they were getting them out. And this is the problem with watching clips of things and being shown bits and pieces without understanding the entire timeline. Because they know that most people are just going to bite. Scary, sad times. Let's quick go to the phones. Got Alice on one. Alice, how are you today?
I'm doing well.
What's on your mind?
So, let's just face it. Anytime the Republican Party or an evangelical comes up with an idea, you can bet that a couple of things are going to happen. One, it's going to take away somebody's protections. And second of all, it's going to cost the taxpayers.
Yep.
And it's going to be a real bad idea.
I don't disagree.
With them, you can just bet on it.
Well, I mean, we've seen the last 40 years in action, and this is learned behavior. Every time we see this movie time and time again, and the question I keep coming back to is, when do we learn?
A lot of us learn, unfortunately. The base is incapable. That's my opinion. They are totally incapable of learning.
Yeah.
I mean, I see it every day, and I just shake my head and go, if it didn't work the first 30 times, why did you think that it was going to work again? And then I always tell them, one of the definitions of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting you're going to get a different result.
And here we are.
But have a good evening,
Thanks,
Rick.
Alice. Appreciate it. No, I mean, and again, I go back to when do we learn? Because we've seen this movie time and time again. We regulate something, and then, they spend a lot of money, and they deregulate it, and then something bad happens, we regulate it again. They spend a bunch of money, say, no, we learned this time, we won't do it again. We promise. We learned, and then they do it again. And then we regulate it. It's this kind of pendulum to where you go, at some point, do we not learn? Answer, no. Now, interesting, I got to see some of Mike Pence's speech with the Gridiron Club, which is supposed to be kind of a light thing, but he really went after Donald Trump, which I found interesting. Getting a little spine I didn't think he had. But the part that caught my attention, and I think caught a lot of people's attention, because Trump, loves to court the evangelicals. He loves to talk about, him being godly, and which is weird. A guy who's been married a couple of times, had some, really. I guess I listened to him too many times on Howard Stern to buy any of it. But Pence said that, he said he read some of those classified documents they found at Mar-a-Lago were stuck inside the president's Bible, which proves he had absolutely no idea what they were. And that's kind of a shot. Now, is that enough? Is that enough for the evangelicals to turn their back on Trump? Because I don't know how you look at Trump and go, oh yeah, he's a godly man. And then I started to think about it. Then my mind, of course, because this is what I do, my mind started going into, well, Rick, you're stuck on that hippie liberal Jesus you learned about. The one who talked about feeding the hungry, healing the sick, helping the poor, taking care of the elderly. Those things you learned as a young kid that were beat into you, in the Catholic Church, that still cared about peace and social justice. This is the new and improved Jesus. This is the gun-toting, heat-packing Jesus. This is Republican Jesus. And there, I gotta tell you, I think Trump is right on. He is the Republican Jesus incarnate. You remember his health care plan? Pay or die. What could be more Republican Jesus than pay or die health care? Sorry, you don't have the money? You can't feed our bottom line? Better luck next time. Ask those families at the border that they broke up and could never put back together. What's more Republican Jesus than that? Enriching the wealthy? See, I remember hippie liberal Jesus talking about, a rich man having a harder time getting into heaven than a camel getting through the eye of a needle. Trump just gave away a whole bunch of money to the very wealthy because they can buy their way into heaven now, evidently. Deregulate everything because, Jesus was about the invisible hand of the market. Never mind the Holy Spirit. We've got the invisible hand of the market. And, my mind goes into school lunch programs. We talked about this yesterday. School lunch programs, they'll just make those kids more dependent. I mean, it's crazy. But there's a whole part of this that's bizarre to me because look, I want to walk on the same path as some of my religious friends because I believe in some of this stuff. Make sure that you help people. Make sure that the hungry get fed, that the sick get care. Live that golden rule, or at least the silver. But no, it's hooray for me and the heck with everyone else. And I point to this Tennessee representative, Congressman Andy Ogles. Ogles, we've talked about before, has a very creative kind of resume. You may remember he was an economist. He was all kinds of stuff. He's been everything. He's like George Santos, a little bit light, although I think this stunt going to take him well over. Because it's now being questioned what he's done with $25,000 that was donated through a GoFundMe account to create what they're calling, and this, I didn't know this stuff happens, but they're a children's burial ground is what he said that he was going to build, complete with big statues of angels and all kinds of stuff. And what it is if you have a child that's stillborn, I know people who have had miscarriages, late, and they will bury the child, the fetus, and there's a place for that. Well, this guy was raking in money to do this, and now we find out, well, there's no burial ground. And he claims that he didn't do it because onerous regulations. Regulations, again, can't have it. Turns out there are no regulations in Tennessee to do this. But again, fall back on that. It's those regulations. So he's not saying where this money went. And I can tell you probably where it went in his pocket. This was a scam. And this is the thing that gets me with some of these folks who wear their piety on their sleeve. A lot of it's about the con. And look, I know good, decent religious people who would give to help families who are struggling. And to have some scumbag do such a filthy thing, I don't know. I'm struggling with it. But again, this is who they are. When do we believe them? I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1911. That was the day Big Bill Haywood of the Industrial Workers of the World gave his speech on the general strike. He presented it in New York City at a fundraiser for the Bucafori Defense Fund. Vincent Bucafori was a shop representative for his union. He faced repeated harassment and discharge by his foreman for executing his union duties. Finally, as witnesses described, the foreman fired Bucafori and punched him, drawing blood. Then he came at Bucafori with a heavy object. Bucafori shot and killed him in self-defense. He was charged with manslaughter, convicted, and sentenced to 10 years at Sing Sing prison. The IWW raised money for his defense and fought for his acquittal and release. Haywood arrived at the fundraiser to deliver the keynote speech titled The General Strike. In it, he reviewed the rich history of workers' actions since the days of the Paris Commune in 1871. He also raged against electoral reform. He stated, quote, "The broadest interpretation of political power comes through the industrial organization. It gives the vote to women. It re-enfranchises the black man and places the ballot in the hands of every boy and girl employed in a shop, makes them eligible to take part in the general strike, makes them eligible to legislate for themselves where they are most interested in changing conditions, namely in the place where they work. He continued, quote, "You have all the industries in your hands at the present time. There is justification for political action, and that is to control the forces of the capitalists that they use against us. That is the reason that you should fully understand the power of the ballot." Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us at Labor History in 2.
Profiteering is always bad, but there are degrees of profiteers. Level 1 includes your everyday price gougers like banks and airlines. At Level 2, you'll find the more demonic outfits like loan sharks and for-profit college hucksters. Then, top of the heap at Level 3, you'll find Eli Lilly. This $288 billion drug-making colossus is America's primary peddler of insulin, the diabetes drug that some 7 million Americans must constantly take, literally to stay alive. But having both monopoly power over the market and such a huge base of captive customers, Lilly has gleefully jacked up its prices again and again over 3 decades, with it now costing each sufferer as much as $1,000 a month. Finally, under intense political pressure to stop its extreme, life-threatening gouging, the giant recently announced it would cut its insulin prices by a whopping 70%. In full-page ads, Lilly hailed its corporate generosity, magnanimously declaring that, quote, "everyone deserves affordable options." But, hello, it has intentionally charged unaffordable rip-off prices for 30 years, wallowing in monopoly profits. And hello again, if Lilly says it can keep profiteering on its insulin product despite slashing the price by 70%, that means it has been overcharging patients by 70% all this time. Yet its rich executives want us to thank them? No, thank you. Even with a price cut, they're still charging $66 for a single vial of insulin. Guess what? It costs Lilly less than $7 to produce that vial, and it could be sold profitably for under $9. Meanwhile, Lilly's price cut is voluntary, meaning it can raise the price again at any time. And CEO David Ricks has refused to pledge that he'll keep the medicine affordable.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, new Quinnipiac University poll out finds that 2/3 of Americans, including 2 in 5 Republicans, think that Fox News should be held accountable for all of its election lies. That's 40% of Republicans. I got to be honest, I find that to be kind of a high number, considering the go-to channel for all the misinformation. Fox, and now with this Dominion suit, could be trouble. Now, this could go one of two different ways. Those folks could come back to sanity, could come back to reality, could get news from better sources, or where I think things could go, get even worse, and they go to crazier sources, and we're now completely off the deep end. I fear that's where we go. But this is interesting. And here to share some thoughts on this and all the other top stories of the day, our good friend Sarah Burris. She's one of my favorite reporters in the whole wide world. She does her work over at rawstory.com. Sarah, thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you. It just made me want to sing, "Won't you take me to crazy town? Won't you take me to crazy town?"
All right, don't quit your day job.
Yep. Thank you.
I'll
be here all week.
You're here all week. Tip your waiter. What do you make of this? 40% of Republicans saying that Fox needs to be held accountable. I guess I got 2 questions. First one being, what does accountability look like?
Yeah.
And the other one is will they leave Fox?
So there was another poll that came out that showed looking at existing Fox viewers and their behavior. Fox has lost about 300,000 from its its daily viewership. And the poll that I was looking at of those Fox viewers show, I think it's something like 13% shifted from believing the big lie to not believing the big lie. And if you're looking at the Fox viewership, what it was at 2.8 or whatever before they took the hit, that's close to 500,000 people. I mean, that's not a small chunk.
Yeah.
And I mean, in many states, that's totally the election, right? We won Georgia by 10,000 plus. We won Arizona by 11,000 plus. So, it shows enough of a change that Republicans should be concerned that they have gone too far. I don't think they care, obviously. I mean, they should. There was a poll that came out about the weaponization committee showing that people don't buy it.
Yeah,
and they're still going wild.
Nobody buys it because
yeah,
they telegraphed it. We're gonna get them. We don't care what we get them on, but we're gonna get them. We'll find something.
Yeah, and so I think that this is. I don't know if it is enough of a hit for Fox to do other things. And I wonder, if people go full crazy, is it going to be really any different? I mean, is it basically just forcing people to go Q versus, and how far really away is people like Tucker and Sean Hannity and Ingram? How far are they really that far away from Q, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not that much.
And that's the frightening part of it. I mean, because my thought is, okay, so they're not going to go to Fox. Where do they go next? Do they go to the more extreme? Do they come back to the middle of the road and go, oh, okay, we got the wrong information? Or do they double down and get even more dug in?
It's interesting. I read a story. I didn't write about it. It was a while ago, about the psychology of people sort of doubling down on their stuff and refusing to change their opinion about stuff. And it's almost like most people are hardwired not to change their opinion, that they constantly want to double down. So I wonder if then these people are just going to go way far to the right. But I wonder then what is that line? Where is it? Where does it cross for those people? And I don't honestly know at this point. It seems like any crazy conspiracy they come up with, folks buy into it. Like, do people really think that JFK Jr. is coming back from the dead?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. But here's the fun part of this. I was just looking at a story that said that there's going to be over 1,000 people more from January 6th going to be arrested at some point. I'm going, it's kind of, we're kind of late in this game, but I think, okay, get them.
Yeah, I'm cool with it. I mean, especially if those are some high-ranking officials, members of Congress, that'd be nice. I'd be very happy about that
because we didn't get anyone.
Darn time.
We didn't get Boebert for the texts. We didn't get any of those people who were
Loudermilk.
And my problem is we still haven't found the money. I still want to know the moneyed people who funded all of this.
Mm-hmm. So some of it we know came from the Publix lady. Yeah. She was the one who basically donated her
$300,000.
Her private plane to fly militia members there. And where are those militia members now?
And why isn't she in between them? You know what
right?
I love about this? You know what I love about it? You've got all these people who are in jail where they should be. And all of them are crying about how hard it is in jail and how screwed up and this is where I agree with them. There's a point where, even crazy people I can find common ground with. Our judicial system is screwed up. Our prison systems are harsh. But every one of these people years before were saying prison's too easy. They get to watch TV and lift weights and three squares in a cot. They were on that crowd.
That's my favorite part of this is the hypocrisy. This week there was a court proceeding where they had a Trump appointed justice in Washington D.C. who basically said you've got it easier than everybody else does. Like, if anything, you are being given more perks and a better situation than everybody else is in the DC jail. And it's because the DC jail is absolute crap. I mean, it is really, really bad and dangerous and terrible, and it has been forever. The only alternative, though, is to close it down. And when DC tried to let out a bunch of nonviolent offenders, Congress said, "Oh no, you got to put them back in there."
Yeah, I'm sure Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's losing her mind over how our political prisoners and how badly they're being treated. If you let these people out, she'd be losing her mind. Oh, the violent criminals.
Yeah, right. That's the thing. Is it's like, oh, they were actually violent. No,
that guy's serving a lifetime. That guy's serving a lifetime sentence for his third violation of having a big bag of pot. Yeah, that guy's going to cause a lot of trouble.
Right. And if he does, it's going to be very slowly.
I want to get your thoughts on, you're a DC person. I want to get your thoughts on this Trump-backed group, this Conservatives Partnership Institute, Jim DeMint and crowd, Meadows and all of them, buying up property around the Capitol. I thought it was a cesspool. I thought it was a swamp. Why are they buying up all this property?
I know, that was my favorite thing that Senator Ben Cardin told us today was, well, it's nice that they're embracing Washington, D.C. now because they rejected it for so long. And I mean, really, these people are buying up several millions of dollars worth of property.
There's $41 million of it last I saw.
Yeah. And so just to put that in context, I looked around at a couple of houses that are in that area. I think it was Cornyn said that it was behind the Library of Congress. So I started looking at some of those, and we're talking about 2,000 square foot houses, house that's going for $2.5 million, a 300 square foot or a 3,000 square foot townhouse for a little over $2 million. So I mean, these are very expensive places. They're not all that big. I mean, obviously my folks live in a 2,500 square foot house that is barely worth $250,000 in the great state of Oklahoma. So, I am aghast at real estate prices in Washington, but I'm crazy. Like curious. It makes me, I mean, honestly, I sort of thought about this like The Family. You remember the house on C Street?
Yep.
I mean, that's sort of what it made me wonder about. Like, is that what they're trying to do here? And is this going to be just another Republican version of that? And the other Republican senators we talked to, like Lankford, when we asked Lankford about it, he ran into the Senate. He was like, which CPI? What are you talking about? And then just ran off. The other guys were like, what? What are you talking about? And then we were like, Mark Meadows' group. And they're like, oh, yeah. They order in food for us. We met up there like, every Monday. It's a nice space.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. It's all about leveraging their contacts, which is why you got DeMint as the founder of it. You've got all these heavy hitter insiders making sure that they're loyal to their leader.
Yeah. And that's the weird thing is that was the place where, after Meadows decided he was going to fight the subpoena from the January 6th committee, that's where Trump sent the money, was to that place that, Meadows decided to go and work to. So I'm curious, was that just directly funneled straight to him, or was that just a donation to the thing? I mean, they wouldn't even tell us if it was a think tank. Like, we're asking, is it a think tank? Like, what is this? And they're like, I don't know. They just buy dinner for us.
It's an
right?
institute.
Like, what does that mean? What does that mean? I don't understand.
It's like all of the other institutes you see, like at George Mason University or even at Stanford. I mean, they've propped these things up all around the country for people like Meadows and DeMint to have jobs, making big money, leveraging their contacts. And this is where working people get screwed every single time because they don't have these kind of contacts. This is where the big money gets funneled through to get what they want. This is why we can't get health insurance for people, why we can't get school lunch programs, why we can't get decent wage jobs, because these things exist to stop every bit of sane, rational policy that working people actually want from ever seeing the light of day, let alone becoming law.
And instead of corporate bigwigs, basically paying their people a living wage or offering health insurance or, matching their donation to their 401k or whatever, they're giving $1 million donations so that Mark Meadows can buy a couple of houses on Capitol Hill.
Patriot Row.
Patriot Row. Oh, Lord.
That's what they're calling it. So I got to be honest, when I saw this, my first thought was, is this, they're planning the next insurrection because Trump has already called for regime change here in the U.S. And when you use those words, that's generally associated with a violent overthrow by a military of a leader. So he's calling for a regime change here. And you've got Patriot Row there, Command Central. I don't know. You start putting pieces together, you got to kind of question it.
I know. It makes you wonder, like, how many of these places, these houses that they're buying up, are they going to put, like, a whole bunch of bunk beds in there and let the insurrectionists, like, just spend the night there so they just have to walk over a little ways before they stage their next insurrection?
All I want to know is, are they going to defecate on the walls of Patriot Row and urinate on the desks there?
I'm gonna
guess are they
no.
house trained?
They're probably house trained.
There you go. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show here with Sarah Burris. Sarah's a reporter over at Raw Story. RawStory.com is where you can find all of her incredible journalism. I want to get your thoughts on, Trump had made that statement that there's a standing order that declassifies everything. Evidently, he waved a wand or something. Yet again, it's one of these things where no one can find it.
Yeah. It was, I guess it was in Harry Potter, like Classificados Documentos or something. And, but yeah, so not only can nobody find it, they actually went to court. A group of outlets, of news outlets went to court and were like, hey, we want this order. They asked the, director of national intelligence, they asked the FBI, like, everybody, like, what is this order? What is this, like, major thing that was in writing that Trump passed? And they're kind of like, well, you can't really give me any documents on that because we don't know what the hell he's talking about. And it kind of, the lack of information, I think, obviously gives the answer here. And I'm sure that Jack Smith, special counsel who's researching all of this stuff, is I'm sure he knows. I'm sure he knows if there was an order, he's got it. If not, good luck pulling that rabbit out of a hat.
Yeah. Now I got to ask because, we've been hearing this for a very long time. Something bad's going to happen to Trump. I know there was a period I had a guest coming on all the time saying he's going to resign any day now. And I'm going, he's never resigning. The Mueller's going to come and get him. There's all this stuff, all of this. Now he's going to be indicted any day now. It's going to happen. Now they're saying someone said that once the first one comes, then it's going to be the floodgates. What are you hearing?
So I heard the thing about the floodgates. I thought that was interesting because the take on it wasn't so much that, if he does it, then I'm brave enough to do it. It's more like, oh crap, if they do it, then we've got to, like, deal with our stuff too. We've got to pull the trigger on this. Otherwise, it's just going to be a complete, S show.
Yeah.
One of the things that Glenn Kirshner, former federal prosecutor, said is that it's kind of a scary deal because every time Trump points his little, classification wand or whatever at a foe of his, it directs a huge amount of hate and violence toward that person.
Right.
And so, I'm not sure any of these prosecutors are willing to, speed this thing up. Like, I'm sure, like, you're talking about a huge office full of people who are like, oh, great, my life is about to get very, very difficult.
Yeah, and look, most prosecutors don't sign up for that. They got enough trouble,
right?
Not to have the president going after them. But it's interesting that I didn't know that there was a third phone call in Georgia. Now this one isn't as big as the one with Raffensperger, but another phone call.
Yeah, and what's interesting is the phone call. It's kind of the same sort of thing as the other calls. It's just repeating the same kind of stuff. So it's not necessarily an additional charge that would happen here. It's basically a what Kirshner said is that it goes more to intent, that the district attorney will be able to use this as part of a broader look at all of the phone calls he made. Mark Meadows coming down to Fulton County, Lindsey Graham making phone calls, like all of these things. And what we saw this week too, with the massive expose, the like ridiculously cool story that the Atlanta Journal-Constitution did, where it interviewed a bunch of the jurors from the special grand jury is that they're all saying this is huge, this is massive, you will not believe what is coming.
Okay.
And these are not people that,
Yeah.
do this all the time, right? These are normal people who are looking at this going, holy cats, like it's going down.
Do we get a sense of timing?
Man, for the love of God, it's been too long.
Is it going to be after March Madness?
Oh, probably.
Because we can't have it during basketball. During March Madness.
You gotta pause. Holy crap! Did you see Arizona went down?
Yeah.
Oh my God! Biden's bracket is just shot to hell. I was like, oh man, that's what you get as a Jayhawk. That's what you get for not picking Kansas. Just saying.
All right. Well, there you go. There you go. Good stuff, Sarah. I appreciate the time as always. Fun, entertaining, and informative. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Have an awesome week, everybody.
You as well. Our good friend Sarah Burris. Make sure you check out her work over at Raw Story, rawstory.com, the website. Gonna take a quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You listen to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
It's 1-866-416-7425.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. Too long have others spoken for us. Those were the words published on this day in labor history. The year was 1827. This was the message of the co-editors of the Freeman's Journal, the first black newspaper in the United States. Slavery had been outlawed in New York that same year. A group of prominent free African Americans from the Northeast gathered in New York to discuss forming a newspaper. As a result, two young black New Yorkers, John Brown Russwurm and Samuel Cornish, founded the Freeman's Journal. It gave a voice to the 300,000 African Americans living in the North. Black people had been almost entirely left out of the mainstream press or were treated with racism. This new paper focused on black perspectives. It reached 11 states. Its pages covered news and events and took a stand against slavery and lynching. While the paper only lasted a few years, it had done something bigger. It launched the idea of a black press. More black-owned newspapers followed. Before the Civil War, these papers became a leading voice in the call to end the slave labor system. In the early 20th century, black newspapers in northern cities published articles, political cartoons, and advertisements about northern employment opportunities for African Americans living in the Jim Crow South. The black newspaper, the Chicago Defender, was one outlet that led this charge. In 1916, the paper published a political cartoon showing a black man with a broken ankle chain. The word labor was written across his back as he headed toward a train car labeled Northern Industries. It's estimated that 1.5 million African Americans moved north during the Great Migration between 1915 and 1930, transforming the labor force of northern cities.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
So it's interesting to see how the Republican Party is split over what's going on in Ukraine, and you've got some loud voices who are basically saying no, allow Putin to take over, and it's just the weirdest kind of scenario because again I think about the era in which I grew up. You didn't trust the Russians, and I'm finding myself agreeing with Nikki Haley that you go, look, if they take Ukraine, if we cede any part of that to them, they're going to continue to go on. So it's in our interest to hope and to help however we can to help the Ukrainians defend themselves. We now find that that Poland is sending air fighters now to help do for the first time a NATO country getting involved because they need air cover. Because I think they know they're next. I mean, this is how this is, and I find it interesting that again the Republicans are really split on this issue because And I got to tell you, I think this has everything to do with two different things. One, it's knee-jerk reaction to anything they think is going to harm Biden. This is Biden's. It's all Biden's fault. It's on Biden's watch. So if it's Biden and it's going to make Biden look bad, we've got to be against it because it's Biden. There is that thought. And look, there were parts on the left that did the same thing to Trump. You know, no matter what Trump did. And look, I took a ton of guff over the fact that I supported him and for tariffs and doing something on China. And I supported him doing something on what was NAFTA, now the USMCA. Took a lot from the left on that. But it was good. It was helpful. So not everybody's absolutely the Antichrist in every form. But I look at this, and so there's that group. And then there's the other group that's, I think the money. I think it has everything to do with the money. That so much Russian money has filtered into the Republican Party. That so much Russian money has gotten into the NRA and a lot of these right-wing groups. That, you know, because you got to wonder who's buying up Patriot Row. You got to wonder where's this MAGA cult money coming from that's going to spend $41 million to buy some houses around the Capitol. And as we've seen, there's a lot of this stuff that you just go, easy to buy and cheap. This is the part that gets me. So cheap. So it's going to be interesting as 2024 rolls around to see how Republicans handle this, because it looks like the party is really split on this issue. And I think the American people, because of this, are starting to have some questions. I'm firmly in the camp of, and understand, I'm an anti-war guy. I don't want to be sending our soldiers into war. But in this instance, the Ukrainians have to defend themselves, just like you or I would do if someone invaded our country. And yes, I would want someone to help us if we needed it to defend ourselves from someone else. Same thing there. It doesn't get any simpler than that for me. It is that easy. But my problem is you've got these people who are just going to make stuff up. And I look at this Marjorie Taylor Greene. Again, she gets so much press because she's the loudest, the most obnoxious, and usually the most wrong. You know, I don't know how the dumbest person and one of the dumbest people in Congress keep getting the most attention. For instance, there was a hearing, and I saw this, the Homeland Security Committee hearing that the House had, where she asked this Chief Ortiz about, you know, did you found this explosive device? And you had a couple of Congress people agreeing, you know, there was, improvised explosive devices. They were going to be used to kill, law enforcement. And they really hammered on this. Now, the guy was like, I really vague, wasn't going to go along with them, but she hammered on it. You know, this is why we need to, go get those cartels. Turns out the bomb that she said that they found, the duct-taped bomb, turns out it was a big duct-taped ball of sand. Yeah, big ball of sand. Thanks, Marjorie. A congresswoman.
Folks, this is a tremendous step forward in the right direction.
Biden administration moves to lower levels of forever chemicals in drinking water.
This lawsuit is designed to make sure that Norfolk and Southern keeps their word to the people of East Palestine and the people of Ohio.
Ohio sues over chemical train derailment. Plus, one state generates much more renewable energy than any other.
It's California. It's California, right?
It is not California.
It's not California? All of those stories and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
If we don't keep the temperature from going above 1.5 degrees Celsius raised, then we're in real trouble. That whole generation is damned.
Damn. I got nothing snarky to add. This is your Green News Report. Okay,
KCAA Loma Linda. The legacy